The lights twinkled, and a happy buzz filled the air at the famous Las Vegas nightclub. People laughed, glasses clinked, and everyone waited for Dean Martin, the king of cool, to sing. But that night, a dark cloud hung over the front row. Right there in the best seat sat a man known to everyone, not for his smiles or songs, but for his cold, hard stare. He was a hitman, a very scary man indeed, whose name whispered through the city like a chilling wind. His suit was sharp, his face unmoving, and his eyes seemed to see everything and nothing, all at once. People tried not to look at him, but their eyes kept darting back. You could feel the fear in the room, thick and heavy like a blanket. It wasn't the kind of fear you felt from a ghost story, it was real, sharp fear. I want to know why this dangerous man was there. Was he just enjoying the show, or was something bad about to happen? The thought made everyone's heart beat a little faster. This wasn't just any show, it was a stage set for something much bigger, much more dangerous. The air in the club grew heavier, not from smoke, but from the unspoken fear that filled every corner. It wasn't just that a scary man was there, it was that everyone knew who he was. His name, whispered in hushed tones, was a name tied to danger, to bad news, to things people only read about in secret papers. He was a made man, a person of power in a dark world, and his presence always meant trouble. Waiters walked a little faster, careful not to spill a drop. Showgirls, usually so bubbly, kept their eyes down, their smiles a little too stiff. Even the musicians on stage, tuning their instruments, seemed to play a little more quietly, as if afraid to make too much noise. Every person in that room understood the silent language of the streets. They knew the famous hitman didn't just show up for a night out without a reason. Was he there to send a message, to watch someone, or was Dean Martin himself in danger? The question buzzed like angry bees in everyone's minds, making their stomachs feel tight. The happy mood had completely vanished, replaced by a tense quiet, a silent scream of worry that only Dean Martin had yet to face. As the stage lights brightened, Dean Martin walked out, a casual smile on his face, a drink in his hand. He was the picture of cool, completely at ease. He glanced around the room as he always did, taking in the crowd. His eyes moved quickly, past the familiar faces, past the excited fans, until they landed on the front row. There, sitting stiff and silent, was the man everyone was whispering about. Dean's smile didn't waver, but inside a tiny alarm bell rang. He was a smart man, Dean Martin. He knew the city, he knew the people, and he certainly knew a threat when he saw one. He didn't need anyone to tell him who that man was or what his presence could mean. He felt the heavy quiet in the room, the way the laughter had died down, the nervous energy humming like a low wire. In that moment, Dean knew he couldn't just ignore it. He couldn't pretend the man wasn't there. That would be like pretending a tiger wasn't in the room. He had to act, and he had to act fast, before the fear in the room exploded into something much worse. His mind began to work, searching for a way to turn the dangerous situation around. Dean took a sip from his glass, his eyes still on the hitman, but now with a flicker of something new, a spark of a plan. Most people would have frozen in fear or tried to ignore the man, hoping he would just disappear. But Dean Martin wasn't most people. He knew that pretending not to see a powerful man, especially one like this, could be a very bad idea. It might even be seen as a sign of disrespect, which could make things even worse. Instead, Dean decided to do the bravest, riskiest thing possible. He would talk to him. Not after the show, not in a hidden back room, but right there in front of everyone during his performance. This was a huge gamble. It could make the situation explode, or it could somehow make things better. It was like walking on a tightrope high above the ground with no net below, but Dean had a gut feeling, a deep understanding of people, especially those who live by different rules. He knew that sometimes facing a problem head-on with a bit of courage and smarts was the only way out. So with a calm breath, he stepped closer to the edge of the stage, ready to speak. Dean put down his drink, a sly smile playing on his lips, and looked right at the hitman. The whole room held its breath, waiting for something terrible to happen. But what Dean said next was not terrible at all. It was brilliant. "Well, look who's here," Dean said, his voice smooth and friendly, but with a hint of playful mischief. He didn't sound scared, not one bit. "Folks, we've got a very important guest in the house tonight, and I just want to say it's a real honor to have you. "But please," Dean paused, his eyes twinkling, "try not to make too much noise. We don't want to wake anyone up permanently." A gasp rippled through the audience, quickly followed by a nervous chuckle. Dean had done it. He had made a joke about the hitman's dangerous job right to his face, but with such charm and a wink that it wasn't rude. He showed he knew who the man was, he respected his presence, but he also showed he wasn't afraid. It was a perfect dance of words, a secret language that only certain people understood. He had acknowledged the elephant in the room, not with fear, but with a clever, fearless wit that only Dean Martin could pull off. After Dean's bold words, a strange quiet fell over the room once more. The nervous chuckles died down, replaced by a new kind of tension. It wasn't the heavy fear from before, but a sharp, questioning silence. Everyone's eyes, including Dean's, were fixed on the hitman. What would he do? How would he react to being called out so directly, even with humour? The hitman remained perfectly still, his face like stone. He didn't smile, he didn't frown, he didn't even blink. It was impossible to tell what he was thinking. This made the suspense even thicker. Had Dean gone too far? Had his clever joke been a terrible mistake? The air felt charged like before a big storm, one wrong move, one sudden sound, and it felt like everything could break. People imagined all sorts of bad things happening. Would the hitman stand up? Would he say something chilling? Would he simply walk out, leaving a trail of icy anger? Every second stretched out, feeling like an hour, as the entire room waited to see if Dean Martin's gamble would pay off or if it would lead to real danger. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the hitman's reaction. It felt like time had stopped. Then something amazing happened. A tiny flicker, like a spark in the dark, appeared in the hitman's eyes. Slowly, almost like a statue coming to life, the corners of his mouth began to lift. It wasn't a big, joyful smile, but it was definitely a smile. A small, knowing smirk that said, "I get it, Dean. That was a good one." And just like that, the heavy, scary feeling in the room began to melt away. It was as if Dean's words had cast a spell, breaking the tension that had gripped everyone. The audience let out a collective sigh, a quiet release of all the worry they had been holding. A few more nervous chuckles turned into real, relieved laughter. The air lightened, and the happy buzz from the start of the night slowly started to come back. Dean's risky joke, instead of causing trouble, had completely changed the mood. It was like a magic trick, making the danger disappear into thin air. Once the hitman offered that rare, small smile, something truly remarkable happened. His whole posture changed. The stiff, menacing way he had been sitting like a coiled snake relaxed. His shoulders dropped a little, and the hard look in his eyes softened. He was no longer the scary enforcer who made everyone's blood run cold. Instead, he seemed like a regular, if still very serious man enjoying a show. He even gave a slight nod to Dean Martin, a gesture that spoke volumes without a single word. It was a nod of respect, an acknowledgement that Dean had played the situation perfectly. He had shown guts and smarts, and the hitman appreciated that. The tension didn't just lessen, it vanished completely. The audience watched in amazement as the feared figure now seemed almost approachable. He looked calm at ease, a complete change from the stone-faced presence that had threatened to ruin the night. Dean's quick thinking had not only made the scary feeling disappear, but had also earned him the quiet respect of a very dangerous man. The applause that followed Dean's joke was louder and more heartfelt than usual. It wasn't just for his singing or his smooth charm, it was for his amazing skill in a truly scary moment. What could have turned into a horrible scene, perhaps even violence, had instead become a story of quick thinking and pure guts. Dean Martin had walked a tightrope between danger and safety, and he had landed perfectly. He hadn't been afraid to acknowledge the threat, nor had he let the fear in the room get to him. His bravery wasn't about fighting, but about using his mind and his words. He had understood the unspoken rules, the hidden language, and he had spoken to the dangerous man in a way that commanded respect, not fear. Every single person in that nightclub felt a deep relief, a gratitude for Dean's quick mind. He had saved the night, saved the show, and quite possibly saved himself and everyone in the room from a very bad, perhaps even tragic outcome. It was a true masterclass in reading a room when life itself was on the line. From that night forward, the story of Dean Martin and the hitman became a legend in Las Vegas. People whispered it in hushed, amazed tones, a tale passed down through the years. It wasn't just a funny story, it was a powerful lesson. It showed how smart words, used with courage and a deep understanding of people, could stop trouble faster than any angry shout or scary threat. Dean Martin, the king of cool, proved that being fearless didn't mean being reckless. It meant knowing when to be funny, when to be respectful, and when to look danger right in the eye without flinching. His quick thinking that night was more than just a good act. It was a moment of true wisdom that saved the day. The story became a famous example of how one man, with nothing but his wits and a microphone, could turn a very scary situation into a peaceful one. It showed that sometimes the sharpest weapon is a sharp mind, and the greatest strength is the courage to speak the right words at the right time. And that, everyone agreed, was the true magic of Dean Martin.